Coming in hot. Everybody has to excuse me if I sound a little gruff. I have been battling bronchitis today. I am happy to be with you. I got tricked into showing up by Raj Mehta, and now he's not here on time. Everybody, please remember that. Let's open up by talking to, in the middle, the man with the best-looking hoodie on I've seen. That is a hoodie, isn't it?
Or is it just a swimming shirt, hoodie? It's it's lightweight, nice to lounge around the house or by the pool, either one.
Robbie Davis, the man with the best looking hoodie in the South.
Looks like habit makes it, or maybe mossy oak fishing, something like that.
And plug. Nobody knows who they are in this conversation. How are you today, Robbie?
Man, I'm doing fantastic. It's almost the weekend. I'm not a big birthday person, but my birthday is Sunday. But no plans. But yeah, just shameless plug again. I'm just full of it today.
Birthday presents galore for Robbie Davis. Now, to his right, a man who has been the envy of the golfing world this week. If you weren't playing at the Open, the next best place to be playing was at Pinehurst, North Carolina, with our friend Brandon Jane. Looked like a great trip. You got to play several of the courses too, I believe.
We did. We played number 4, number 2, number 9, and number 5. So it was a pretty good golf trip.
Which was the best?
I'd have to say number 4. I liked it the best. They have the Open. What's that?
It's a little more well-known, number 4 is, don't you think?
4 and 2 are the two most well-known. 2 is where they have the Open Championship or U.S. Open. And I think it's scheduled in 2024 again at number 2. It was good. I'd say if my caddy was a little bit better, it could have been a better experience.
Caddy.
Yeah, he just graduated high school 2 months ago and was not very familiar with the course, so it didn't help very much.
Wait, we're on live television and you're throwing a 18-year-old caddy under the bus because of your golf?
He's got to start somewhere. It's just luck of the draw. Their caddy pool's very large down there, so a lot of the guys love their caddies. But I just got the young buck, and he's got to start somewhere. Very nice kid, though. Very nice.
Doctor, what'd you tip him? What was the tip?
$150.
Ah.
Dr. Kumar at Urgent Care gave me this to drink. He said it was good for my congestion. He said it was a little bitter. Dr. Kumar, you lied. It is a whole bunch bitter. What are you lying to them, man, for? That is the worst crap I've ever tasted in my life.
I drink whiskey for congestion.
Yeah, is that the purple drink that you hear about? Is that Lil Wayne stuff?
It looks more like horse pee, to be honest with you, than purple drink. So let's get into the show, and maybe Raj will join us in a minute. We do have some breaking news. I've been at home today on the couch trying to send a few emails, but I've followed a story that's broke over the last 24 hours on the Marion Messenger. Freddie Freeman famously fired his agent Close after the start of the season amidst but many rumors. The rumors is that he didn't know about the Braves' last offer, and that has went into the mainstream media. I guess the most vocal critic of Freddie Freeman's agent has been Doug Gottlieb. Today, Close, the agency, sued Doug Gottlieb for his comments on air, saying they were slanderous and reckless. And it's a whole new world in sports media. If we're going to start suing people, this, reckless speculation, might as well go ahead and tee up and get a lawyer. Guys, do you think Freddie Freeman knew about this offer, or is all this smoke and fire just hope? I personally think he probably did not know the details of everything, but the Braves moved on without Freddie. This is the ugliest divorce in baseball history. Robbie, if you're a fan right now at this point, you've got your Braves star player now going to LA. His agent is now suing a major network. You've traded your whole farm system or half your farm system for a young first baseman. Supposedly, allegedly, Close is now receiving death threats from the Braves fan base. This is one of the bigger media messes in the history of sports. As an attorney, how liable what you say in a sports broadcast or in a sports op-ed? Is it the same as regular speech? You can't hide under the misnomer of this is recreation or this is sports?
So great question. A lot of layers to that. I'll try to get to each one. All right. So the First Amendment, just basic Constitution, First Amendment protects you from the government restricting speech, not private individuals. So you can say your opinion about people. I could say Brandon is a jerk. I think Brandon's the worst father in the world, for instance. I can say that's my opinion. That's protected speech. What I can't say is Brandon, or not, I was just say John Doe beats his wife or John Doe molests little kids. I'm saying a fact, right? And so you'll hear this we're very careful on this show to always say allegedly and think that this is just what we've heard. We're not saying this is factual because we don't know.
We're not in rooms. We're not.
Right. And this is should be a teaching moment to people that in this media world that we're in, everyone wants to be the first to break news and to report on things. Well, there's a reason why for hundreds of years journalists got sources and double checked their sources, because if you say something that as fact that is wrong, you are absolutely liable for that. Now there's exceptions and there's different standards. So if I say something about a private individual, for instance, they have more protection than a celebrity. A celebrity, it has to be either knowingly false, so the person saying it has to know that it's false, or it has to be reckless disregard for trying to find out the truth. And so there's different tests on that. But yeah, so I mean, the fact that, well, I'll say this, the fact how Freddie acted that weekend in Atlanta, it sure seemed like he did not know what was going on or did not know the inner workings. Now, again, I don't know that. We're not reporters. We're not even journalists. We're just here to just kind of report on, or just say what we see and what we think. And the second level, that the fact that the guy filed a lawsuit, and and what people don't understand is once you file a lawsuit, not only does it set the person who is sued up for discovery, meaning have to disclose private information, the person that is suing them also has to give up that. And so the fact that this agent is going to that level, where there's smoke, there may be fire. But yes, this is a sad story all around. And I don't know Doug Gottlieb. I listen to his pod or radio show occasionally.
I know he's a douche.
But that channel that he's on tends to want to be that we're going to break it first, no matter whether we fact check or not.
So welcome, Raj. Brandon, I want to read you this statement that Gottlieb had released that evidently started all this. And tell me your gut reaction to this. Casey, this is Gottlieb in a tweet. And I assume it's also what he said on the air. Casey Close never told Freddie Freeman about the Braves' final offer. This is why Freeman fired him. He found out in Atlanta this weekend. It isn't rare to have it happen in MLB, but it happened. Close knew Freddie would take the Atlanta deal. That was Gottlieb's words. Now, I will clarify this by saying, when this went on past last season, it did not shock me Freddie Freeman signed with the Braves or the Dodgers as it did many other people. That was long rumored about a desire to move back to the West Coast. But, Brandon, this has become even uglier than just your star player leaving. And unfortunately, the two side victims of this are the Atlanta Braves and the Los Angeles Dodgers. What's your thoughts on it?
So this story has been framed for us to believe on both ways here. So initially it was, the Braves couldn't reach a deal, that it was not enough years for Freddie to sign, all this nonsense coming out about what was factual, what was not. And, being in the media, it's hard to decipher through the truth. And so we were all talking about it. And it seemed like, Freddie wanted a long-term deal. And that's how it was framed in the media. And, that's what I read and what I researched. And now, after that return to Atlanta and him, talking with the GM, it just seems like he found out some things that he was not aware of, allegedly. So, maybe it really made him mad because he wanted to retire. Great, who knows? But there's obviously a lot more to the story than we're being led on to believe right now. And again, I don't think you do a lawsuit over a situation like this. Now, it's different if the guy didn't get a deal at all. And he's, $2 million a year at some other team, but he got a pretty good deal, and he, could be happy and say nothing, but he's obviously mad about something if this is what's happening. So that's my initial reaction.
Good point. Rod, does this affect Matt Olson, who's in the middle of the most up and down season in the history of baseball? And it seems like he's never been able to settle in as the Braves. And also, is it affecting Freddie in the clubhouse? Or let me put it this way. For the sake of the Dodgers, does Freddie need to come out and clarify this and say, here's the facts. I want it to be a Brave. It didn't work out. I'm a Dodger now. It's time for everybody to move along.
No. Freeman has his closure. This thing is total nonsense. The Braves signed Matt Olson on the 15th of March. This tweet came out near July. It's a tweet. It's sensational. You guys have that moron Clay Travis. I'm just saying you, meaning he's prominent in the South. It's clickbait. It's impossible for Freeman not to know what the organization that he has been the face of, especially since Chipper retired. He was the Atlanta Braves. It's silly. Now, does this guy have a case, which I'm sure Rob talked about? Sure. It's injurious to business and profession. There's no doubt about it. Will it probably get dismissed? I think so. I hope Rob said the same. He knows better than I. As for the Dodgers and Braves, Matt Olson's a heck of a player. He changed leagues, is trying to, whether he wants to admit it or not, fill the shoes of a legendary player. He leads the league in doubles. He's an amazing defender. He's been excellent. I don't know what people are expecting of this. If anything, I'd condemn Anthopoulos, and he and Freeman have ironed it out. They have their closure. But to say Freeman was completely oblivious to this, and then Doug Gottlieb, of all people, more or less drop the expose is nonsense.
Good point. Anybody got anything? Do you think, Robbie, I wanted to ask you and Raj this as attorneys and foreign attorneys, do you think that before a judge somewhere other than a hearing to determine whether it's legit or not?
Well, so So the 4 elements of defamation are a false statement stated as a fact, the publication to a third person. We obviously have that. The fault must be that of negligence, which means a reasonable person would not have done that. And then damages or some harm. So you have damages, you have publication for sure. So the question is, was it false? What Gottlieb said, and then if it was, what did he base his statement on, and was that reasonable or not? So it's in today's world, hey, I saw so and so with a blue check mark tweeted it, thus I'm going to say it as fact. Is that reasonable or not? I mean, what Raj and I studied in law school was a whole different world than what we have now.
Rob, did you address how freedom of the press doesn't apply?
And I did talk about that. I talked about how for public figures there's an extra level of reckless disregard or knowingly false.
But isn't it only applicable not to private organizations per se, or private individuals, but like overreaching of state and government? Or am I?
Well,
I graduated 20 years ago, so I don't remember.
Yes, so the freedom of the press is just, and this is, I haven't studied constitutional law in a while, but the freedom of the press is just from the government. So that's from the government, not from private companies or private people. Like we can say, so for instance, if River City Media wanted to pull me off the air for something I said, they have an absolute right to do that.
I just saw people, claiming freedom of the press.
The state of Tennessee cannot do that.
No, exactly. I just saw on Twitter, morons claiming freedom of the press, this and that. And you're like, come on, dude, it does not apply. The Constitution is not in effect here.
Yeah. The First Amendment may be more confused. More people may confuse the First Amendment than they do the Second Amendment, which is hard to do, but they do.
And the 14th. Well, actually, now the 14th is the most confusing. Sorry.
When I got into sports radio, a local attorney friend of mine at the time said to me and pulled me to the side and said, "It is great you're doing this, but I want to warn you about one thing. You go, never make anything personal public through your media." And I was like, I'm covering high school football games. Well, it wasn't a couple of weeks until I faced the first angry parent of a 31-year career. So I've been very cautious about, a kid. It's as simple as this, and I'll say it to this and we'll move on. If a kid makes a boneheaded play on the field, I will say the kid made a boneheaded play on the field. I will never refer to the kid as a bonehead.
It's objectivity versus subjectivity. And as parents, anybody says something about, actually, I can admit if my kid messes up, he messes up. Now, granted, it's not on that stage. But yeah, of course, parents are naturally going to be oversensitive. And that's why dads fight at softball games. Like Randy thought this was America, which is a very fitting analogy. But I couldn't see you ever insulting a child. And if anybody had issue with that, then I'm quite sure that's on their end.
Anybody can finish it up, Robbie or Jane?
Yeah, I mean, just to your point, my wife's always being crazy. She's not crazy.
Allison, we love you dearly. We don't listen to Robbie.
You're not sleeping on the couch, bro. He is.
All right. In the next segment, Shane's going to host for the golf segment, but let's go ahead and get through the tennis segment here.
Wait a minute. I thought we got rid of golf. That's why I was late.
No, we did Freddie first. So now we're back on. We're back on.
My bad.
You can just do it and just shake your head yes a lot.
Yeah, I'm just going to mute myself.
I'm excited about the tennis segment.
I know tennis. I know tennis.
And we're about to talk probably the only tennis match I've watched in the last 10 years. And then we saw Djokovic win again at Wimbledon. And I began to think about a subject for this show. I believe we're living in a time where the best tennis player and the second best tennis player career has paralleled each other. And I find it odd that more people does not follow this sport now. It was a huge follow in the 70s with Conor. I almost feel like Nadal, Djokovic have been so good that they've made the sport pointless almost. But again, watching Djokovic win his, 12th Wimbledon, are we watching the era, Robbie? You're a tennis fan. Are we watching the era? Is this equal to Jack and Tiger being at the top of their game at the same time?
That's a great analogy because this is one of these topics. Jack and Tiger's another one. I can flip a coin and I can argue either side and believe either side about who's the greatest out there. Like my gut, like for me personally, I just really like Nadal much better than Djokovic. But then you look at, I mean, is it more or less impressive that the only time anyone wins on his turf is when he gets hurt, or when he's injured? At full strength through his career, nobody's ever beaten him on clay, and he's the only person that can say that. He's beat Federer on grass. He's beaten. He won the Australian. He's won each of them. Won all four. None of them won the Grand Slam. It was a shame Nadal got hurt in Wimbledon this year. That was going to be must-see TV for me, that final at 9 a.m. on Sunday. I was waiting for it all week. Beyond the other fact, you have Djokovic who, so for Nadal's weakness, he's won 2 Wimbledons, and Djokovic has only won 2 French. Nadal's had to go through Federer and Djokovic. Nadal's been there for all of him. So you can argue it all, and Federer's had a great run too. What's amazing about tennis is the last time Americans won any of these, I was a senior in high school, and that was both Andre Agassi and Andy Roddick. I mean, that's
Pete
insane.
Sampras before that, right?
Yeah. It hasn't been an American in the picture in coming up on 20 years.
Don't you believe Federer, though, is not getting his due? When the Tiger Woods analogy, I've heard people say it's like Woods versus Duval versus, Sergio later. He's not Duval, and he and Nadal had probably the best 2 Wimbledon finals ever in 2007 and 8. Like, they were head to head, and Federer was considered the best in the world for a long time.
Yeah. Federer is like the Kobe Bryant in the basketball world, I think, right now. Like, at his peak was considered at least right up there with Jordan. And then as time has faded, people have came and passed him by. But yeah, at his peak, he dominated.
So is Nadal Jordan?
Jordan?
In this loose analogy.
You're going to have the Rod Laver people, the older generation, but Nadal's got one up on Djokovic now. They're going to the U.S. Open. Djokovic can't play. Nadal's hurt. Maybe they both missed this one, and they're running out of steam. You would think.
Federer's 40, Nadal's 36, Djokovic 35.
Yeah,
and Federer's got only 1 less Grand Slam than Djokovic, 2 than Nadal.
The guy that Djokovic beat in the finals, man, that guy's got to he needs to see a shrink.
They're very athletic this day and age. It shows to me that tennis is a mental game more than anything. Physically, you have a guy like Chang back in the day that could get to every ball and slide around and whatnot. But, even though the athletics and the physique and whatnot ability of kids has evolved, Mentally, that won't ever change. And I think that's what separates these three.
One of the beauties of tennis is they have to carry their own damn rackets and they have to carry their own stuff. And no one's there to pamper them. Their coaches can't come. They're on that court by themselves. You carry your own stuff, and
if they get into a fight, nobody comes out there and pushes them away and backs. They get after it.
I want to make a point here, and then we'll go to Chain. We'll talk about the Open. The highest ratings on tennis was in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s. It's a run of Jimmy Connors and John McEnroe that led into Agassi and the Michael Changs. I'll say this way.
That's relative.
And also, TV changed at that point too. But being the only person alive in the 70s and 80s that really paid attention to sports, Wimbledon has lost some of its glamour. I would say Wimbledon at one point was much like Daytona 500. It was maybe the only tennis match that everyone watched, but that breakfast at Wimbledon was the highest rated Sunday morning show every year. I don't think I have the interest because there's not a single American that I can name. Now, I love Nadal, and he became my guy. But for the rest of the country and the Midwest, and do we need an American to get more eyes on the sport? Raj, we'll start with you.
Absolutely. And I know what you're implying. And even though the contrarian in me will say it's definitely relative, back then there were 9 channels. But no, you're right. The emotion in the country with breakfast at Wimbledon was it wasn't just about exposure. It was a huge thing, and probably one of the first ever, aside from maybe the British, in which an international event and soccer was paramount in the U.S. It transcended borders. To answer your question, absolutely. We say the same, and this is another poor analogy with marketing in Major League Baseball, especially with urban and African-American communities. I don't want to go down this path too much, but I remember years ago, Ryan Howard was like the best first baseman in baseball, and they asked kids in Philly who he was. Like 80% didn't know. Then they asked them who the Philadelphia 76ers sixth man was. It was Lou Williams, and like 80% knew. However, that's an issue of baseball not taking advantage. So to answer your question, yeah, I mean, it could be the popularity of the sport. Even golf, people start kids out at 3, but it's a lot easier at 3 to swing a club, in my opinion, than a racket. There's also a ton of money and sponsorships. From what I understand, it's like AAU stuff overseas. So it's a complex answer, but absolutely. I mean, America is by far, the biggest superpower. We dominate the media. We're begging for anything. The Agassi and Sampras days are long gone.
Robbie, I remember in '79 when Chattanooga product, Roscoe Tanner, Baylor graduate, played in the Wimbledon finals. It was actually one of the few times in my life growing up, the son of a very Pentecostal family. Our church actually delayed so everyone could watch Roscoe Tanner play in the finals of Wimbledon.
That's awesome.
Is it something? I'm thinking of a comparison of the World Cup. I think the reason that maybe soccer doesn't have the hold on America that it does other places is just that simple fact. We can't turn on TV and see from middle America or New York City that golden boy American hopeful somewhere in the tennis world.
No, I mean, I'll take the other side of that argument. I guess America is a unique place, probably has more pride in itself than a lot of other places, but not that much.
And most impatient. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, since 2003, not a single Australian has won any of these 4, and they still host one of the Grand Slams, and it's sold out every time. So you don't have to have a patriot there to play to appreciate it. What we have is no patience, no attention span. It's besides the U.S. Open, it's all at an inconvenient time. We don't know who's playing, and look, the America fascinates and is drawn to your TV over March Madness. It can be two teams you've never heard of. You write their name on a bracket. We're so intrigued about it. Competition will drive people and picking a side. The problem is the time zone, and to be frank, ESPN doesn't market all that much, and that's the golden ticket in sports. ESPN's either with you or they're not. Even though they broadcast it, it's not their cash cow.
Yeah, it's the finals are on cable, and yeah, I think golf is the exception in America, and maybe it's because really anybody can pick up a club and not necessarily be good, but love the sport, and this is a nice transition. But strategy in our culture is just not. We love superstars, we love points on the board, baseball. I love, like Randall, a 3-2 game, a pitcher's duel, but most people need 10-9. And tennis is no different. If we don't see a guy like Nadal sliding on clay and showing athletic feats, then we're not huge fans. And it's a master strategy, a master mental game, again, like golf, but not everybody. You can't be 80 and whatever gender or whatever you identify with, and I shouldn't say that, but just pick up a club and play, right? Like tennis is very different.
All right, Brandon Jane, before we go to break and head into a segment you're going to host about the Open, if you got any thoughts on the tennis talk, I know you took a little break yourself there, so did love it, but
not much on tennis. Not a big tennis guy. Not a whole lot to say there. Yeah, just I don't watch it. Don't follow it.
Like me in golf.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm about to
polar opposites.
We've got to get our one and only sponsor in on Cherokee Boulevard, running for the best of the best in Chattanooga. Please vote for Davis, Kessler, Davis on the Chattanooga Times Best of Best. You get free entertainment courtesy of Davis, Kessler, and Davis every week here on Reckless Speculation. And you even get to see me higher than a sober man can be on cold medicine trying to do a show because Rod tricked me into it. But tune in to every Thursday for the Davis, Kessler, and Davis Reckless Speculation. Alleged reckless speculation.
When you are hurt, we are here to help.
Right now, we need your help.
Vote for Davis, Kessler, and Davis for the best of the best personal injury law firm.
Voting is now open at bestofchat.com.
All right, Robbie Davis timed that perfectly to hear himself talking. Brandon James.
Voting is now closed, though.
When did it close?
Is he supposed to be the good-looking one, like the figurehead? Like, I don't know, dude. I'd go with your dad.
Get your results. When do we get the results?
In September, which I was shocked. I'm like, it's just the computer system. Just give us the results. Like,
well, we might need.
We'll probably have to pay for them to get them.
Yep. All right, Shane. I'm going to go on mute, and I'm going to let you run this Open segment.
All right, sounds good. All right, one of my favorite events of the year is the Open, and especially at St. Andrews. This is the 150th, and this is kind of the Mecca. It's where it all started. It's where golf was invented. So super excited about this one. Haven't got to watch much today because I've gotten back into swinging things from a golf trip myself. So
no pun intended.
Trying to catch up. Yeah, right. No pun intended. Let's just go ahead and start with, the one and only Tiger Woods headline here. Initially coming into this, he was minus 140 to make the cut. All right. He shows up and fires a 78 today, plus 6. He is tied, I don't know, close to the bottom. It doesn't look well for him. But if you've watched any of the highlights or any of it at all, he looks to be in good spirits and just happy to be out there. And then you hear guys like who was in his T group, Max Homa, was one of them that said, "Hey, I'm playing with the GOAT at the 150th Open, and this is such a huge deal for me." Robbie, I'm going to go to you first. What do you think the Tiger effect still has on these younger kids in this generation, regardless if he's, tip-top shape or can make a cut? What kind of influence is he still making and impacting to this game just by being here?
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge impact. And I mean, think of any profession you're in, either your mentor, whether you know them or not, or somebody you look up to. You hear them speak at a conference, you read books about them. Like, it would be, I mean, I'm not an English major, but if J.D. Salinger walked in the room, I'd be like, oh my gosh, like, you get freaked out, right? And, or Robert Frost or something, you know what I mean? Like, you would get freaked, and like,
We get it. You're smart.
or, a lawyer, they walked in the room, a guy I idolized. Yeah, it would be weird, it would just be, and so you'd be nervous. And then, he does, I agree, he did seem happy to be out there. But man, you can see the pain in his eyes after some of those swings, and it's kind of sad. And like, I was watching a little I didn't get to see much of it either because of work, but watching a little YouTube, kind of recap, and just talking about like the focus he has on that one spot of the ball to hit it perfectly, and his setup and everything is so well. And one of the best things I heard Tiger say, and this is not St. Andrew, well, kind of St. Andrew related, but when he's talked about the guys going to the Live Tour and all that, and he said, I mean, if you're going for guaranteed money, what makes you get up and work in the morning? What makes you practice? What makes you want to be great? And that's him in a nutshell, right? Like, it was never about the money. The money just is a result of the work. And that's what I've really came to appreciate from Tiger. I mean, look at, man, he's got $1 billion sitting there, Nike money. He never has to do it. But the fact to come back after this second car wreck, and just to, I mean, his body, I don't know. I know I would not do it, but I can't imagine that will and that drive to do it. And so he's always going to be the story as long as he's still out there. But as far as golf, Rory played great. Smith is up there. I think the number is going to be low. I think I picked -16 on my pool. I think I'm not low enough. It's a great course, St. Andrews. And it's an old course, meaning these players can launch it and they can really attack it.
Is it the only permanent course? Like the
For
open round, like
no, the Masters is
Augusta. Sorry.
Yeah, but the Open
bounces around.
It does bounce around, but St. Andrews will always be in the mix for sure.
Now,
But
as
Brandon,
a lay
is
person,
it still the original dimensions?
What's that?
Is it still the original dimensions as far as like par fours or
The distance? I think so. I don't think they've made any changes.
Yeah, because like
whatsoever.
I was seeing Tiger was hitting irons off the tee box on fours. Like,
Yeah.
I think they can
Well,
really. But the problem is the sand traps are all over the place.
Sand traps, and the problem is the weather there. That's the biggest determining factor on how you can play is, you can go off the front nine and, sunny skies and everything's great. You turn to the back, it's 20-mile-an-hour wind and spitting rain at you. So
30 degrees.
as a lay person, the British it was like Frogger. That was the fun, just to see like the elements and the wind and like, how are these dudes doing this? And most of them didn't. I find it by far the most fascinating. But again, to the Tiger Woods effect, he can be awful, relatively speaking, and still be the number one headline. I mean, you got a young American. We're talking about tennis in the parallel. Cameron Young, I think he's a rookie, right? That's what I think.
Turned pro 2019.
Okay. I
practically. I mean, young guy.
I don't really know him per se, but like we talk about being a torchbearer for the U.S. and obviously golf is a different sport and with different history, but it's still going to be Tiger. And for whatever it is, we love GOATs. Jordan, when he was 40 and playing on the Wizards, he didn't make any headlines. I mean, I didn't care. And I was watching basketball every day. But Tiger, you know, he is the torchbearer. And for me personally, with him, and this is the last thing I'll say, it's his love and passion for the game. It wasn't about, you know, his lapse in judgment and him feeling invincible, which who wouldn't after what he had been through and being a superstar from the age of 3 on the Merv Griffin show. But he just loves the game. So, I mean, he can barely walk and you see him out there and he doesn't complain. He doesn't make excuses. For someone like me, like, I mean, it makes me almost like him more.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And it kind of leads me into my next question here. For you, Raj. You know, Jack won his last major pretty late in the game. A lot of time in between and time to rebuild. Now, he obviously didn't go through the injuries that Tiger has foreseen. But, you know, this is kind of Tiger's first thing back. And it's pretty inhuman that he's already here and playing at this level. Do you think, you know, in 5 years, 3 years, 10 years down the road, does he still have one left in him?
First of all, you are a much better host than Rob and I would ever be. You have to think so. You would love to see the walk-off. I'm a lay person technically, and after he was hugging his kid and his mom after the last, was that the Masters?
Masters.
Yeah, I mean, that was poetic and that was global. But he loves the game so much and he's still relevant. I mean, I can see the pain on him, but for a lot of people that don't know the sport and don't watch it, they're like, oh, he's in the field, he should win. If not, he's not great. Those people can kick rocks. Yes, I think he will, but the question is, will he walk away after that, or can he ever walk away considering who he is, how long he's been in the game? I mean, he's synonymous with golf this day and age. And of course, I know Palmer and Nicklaus and, you know, Norman, but most people only know Tiger Woods, like the average TV watching sports fan. And so I don't think he'll walk away. I mean, do you guys think he will?
I don't. I mean, until he literally can't walk, I don't think he'll walk away.
Just crazy.
It's ingrained in him. That's all he's known since he was, 4 years old. So I don't ever see him giving up or quitting or walking away, regardless.
Does it diminish your opinion of him as real golf fans?
No, it makes me more appreciative. Just because he could have walked away easily and not even attempted a comeback here. Like you said, the Masters was poetic. To come back and win that after what he went through already, that could have been a bookend right there, and everyone would have been satisfied.
Hugging his kid after he hugged Earl like 25 years ago. I mean, even I was almost
this guy, and I think he's almost more in a teaching role now too. Like when he goes out and he plays with people, he's giving advice more and more often now. And I mean, he understands his role. It's kind of like, getting old in the NFL or something, and you kind of move back to a backup quarterback and more of a teacher role. So I don't see him quitting.
Is he one of a kind historically? Like, I know competition's different now, and we have a lot of different faces, and he was so unique back then, but we can't predict the future. But is he one of a kind? Like, is he golf for the next 50 years, theoretically, in your guys' opinion?
Well, I mean, historically, look, it's Jack, him, a huge gap. And then I think you got Palmer and then maybe Mickelson, or I guess maybe Ben Jones has, but it's a 6 or 7 major gap.
Let me just throw out a little quick stat.
Randall was
to you
38
real
when
quick.
Jack was golfing.
Since I think it was 2000 to 2013, out of the majors, Tiger was
I saw that.
under minus 124 in strokes in the majors. The next closest, plus 125, and that guy was from like 1990. So the dominance that he had put in on this sport has just been unbelievable.
I mean, I think so. He turns 48 in December. I hate to say Tiger can't do anything, but I think at this point he's not going to win the U.S. Open. He's not going to win the PGA. So I think it's
The Masters.
maybe an Open and the Masters. So he's probably got 3 to 4. The Masters is obviously the favorite for him to win.
Sure.
Maybe he gets one more.
When and how do you become a senior on the seniors tour? I'm sorry to
I
interrupt.
think it's.
When
I
you
think he
choose
qualifies
to.
for 50.
50.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can
It's-
qualify, but
it's-
you don't have to play.
It's their selection, like
Yeah.
whenever they want to go.
So he could be Oh, you mean the golfer or the senior tour?
The golfer.
The golfer.
I don't know if I can see him getting one more, but if he does, it's going to be Augusta. The Open, the U.S. Open's too demanding. That's too much.
Yeah. All right. Just real quick, couple more little things here, and then we'll roll over to the next segment. Or unless you got something to say, Raymond.
Our boss is waving at us.
I want to bring up a point, and I've been listening to your conversation. We always talk about Mount Rushmore golf. I think Jack in his prime, which you all lived through, I'm a little bit older, and I did. It was not Tiger popular, but was close. I think Jack faced a stiffer competition at time than Tiger was. He wasn't as far separated as the group. But if you go back to one golfer who had the national media and attention like Tiger, you might have to go back to Bobby Jones. And I mean, that's in another world ago. We're talking when the latest media was print media, and we didn't have amateurs. Winning the Southern Open Amateur is more important than winning the British Open. So
well, and there's the cultural thing to it. Like, he's the first black golfer to be great at his sport. The same way Eminem was the first white rapper to be great at his craft. Like that, when you add talent to cultural phenomenons, it blows the media up extreme. I mean, you're just going to get so much popularity into a what would be a niche market now expands tremendously, and every golfer owes Tiger half their paycheck, to be honest.
Well, exactly. Tiger was the needle. Like he didn't move the needle; he was the needle, and it was the longevity of how dominant he was for how long, and regardless of race or color, I mean, he was just better than everybody for a very long time.
Does it bother you guys, especially someone like Rob, who we share a very similar opinion politically, that, I mean, he's probably wasn't the first, but like at the Masters. I know regionally there's a point of extreme pride. It's kind of like the SEC, but I mean, the guy, we all know how exclusionary it was. That has always bothered me. And that's probably the most notorious golf tournament. So what I'm saying is I'm not holding a grudge, but it doesn't have the same like historical impact upon me. Like it's hard for me to expect.
Just because of the roots of where it came from.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wondered if other people acknowledge that or think that. I mean, and I think that also adds to him being such a trailblazer, a pioneer.
Well, I don't look at it that way.
On the flip side of that,
It's just
on the flip side of that, hey, this is me, a different color person coming into your house. I'm better than you, and here's my flag, and I'll be ordering dinner next year. I think it adds to his kind of persona and just this. I'm better than everyone out here doing the same thing, and y'all had more of a head start than I did, and I'm better, and all of y'all are scared of me.
What kind of comment is that on the Masters, though?
Well, I think what it really shows, I think it shows, kind of change and evolution of the sport. I don't think you can necessarily, take the old ways and the origination of this tournament and course and compare it to nowadays. It's completely different. Everything's changed. Tiger wasn't the first, but he was the biggest, and he's the biggest one in the sport, regardless of race. So,
real fast to Tiger's legacy. I think the shame of it, we have not seen the Tiger bounce in the golf, moving over to a more diversified sport. And that's something I thought we would see. In the 30s, you had all those great Jewish boxers come over, and they all became. It's like a legend about the 30s and 40s. You had these great Jewish boxers, and they all kind of come from this one camp. We see it now in UFC. We have the influx of Soviets that thanks a lot to Khabib. We saw it in baseball with the Latin American market and how open it would come. I still hope, and I still sincerely hope that we do have a Tiger effect that gets more young people of race involved in golf, because I think it would be great for the sport.
Absolutely.
I agree, but him being so universally accepted and praised for as he should be, it seems like it wasn't. The world absorbed and followed Tiger Woods. It wasn't, something like I said with Ryan Howard being promoted by the sport. No, I agree with you totally. That's a great point. It's also a wealthy sport. Let's not beat around the bush. It's not something often that the urban.
Yeah, I've never played Pinehurst. I had to Google where Pinehurst was.
And me too.
But
it's definitely a wealthy sport.
With his mother being Asian, I do think we've seen a great growth on the professional level in the Asian golfers who have on tour, the Japanese and Chinese golfers that are now playing on their own separate tours. So, to your point, Tiger's
that's it. People identify him with being Asian versus African American, in my opinion.
Well,
this is a slippery slope. I'm sorry.
Well, and so no, I think you guys make a good point, and we're probably talking on this much too long than we planned on. But what Tiger brings to the table is an increase in American audience, but a huge increase in international audience. But to young urban kids, man, football's still the player in the clubhouse. And
will golf ever change? Will golf ever be appealing this day and age with disparity?
If Tiger couldn't do it, I don't know.
Yeah,
if it can, I think it's just it's too expensive to start out, and I think they need to do better to work on. And they actually talked about this at the Open, working on short courses and trying to build, smaller footprints for kids to get involved that were a lot more affordable. And that's the direction I think it needs to go. You got to get people involved that can actually.
18 holes is too much for a kid to play.
Nobody wants to come in, with a 8-year-old kid and pay $40 and play 18 holes for 4.5 hours.
I got bored playing putt as a kid.
We had a 9-hole Bixby Hills. They let us bring beers on the course. That was the most fun. That's how I got into golf.
Scenic view. That's how we got into it.
Yeah. And you can really, can you not geographically mix and match to the point where it doesn't take up too much real estate, no matter where
You could. That's what I'm saying. You could do a par 3 9-hole course that you could go play in an hour and a half, and it would be, $10, 50, whatever, to go out there and play. It's going to the movies,
Before we got on air, Brandon and I were talking about Sweetens Cove. It's a 9-hole course. I played 27 holes there last time I played. Played all different. They have 2 holes on each green. The greens are huge. You go to different flags each time, different tee boxes. It's a fantastic setup in a small footprint. That's going to be the future of golf courses, I think.
I think so.
I've never heard of that.
So.
That's awesome.
But real quick before we get off, I got one more thing I wanted to get through, and I'm sorry we talked way too long on this. So, all right. Cameron Young's leading, came in with a 64 today, at -8. We got Rory right behind him, 66, and Cam Smith, 67. Then we got, the crowd favorite, number 1 world ranked, Scotty Scheffler at 68. The statistics of somebody winning the Open after leading round 1, 17.5%. Cameron Young turned pro 2019. He's got 3 PGA Tour wins. If you guys were a betting man, and I'll give you the stats here. Cameron Young plus 800. Rory McIlroy plus 340. Who's the favorite? Cam Smith plus 700 and Scotty Scheffler plus 750.
Scheffler.
It's like college football. To go wire to wire is really hard.
Yeah.
You need a guy like Saban running it. But, yeah, I can't see a kid like this. If he can hold everybody off, and that shows me a lot mentally. And that'd be nuts, man.
Yeah.
So
who would you take out of those top 4
Scheffler.
there?
Not a rookie leading. Yeah, I'd take Scheffler for sure.
Scheffler. You like
Randall's
Scheffler?
getting impatient over there, but yes, that's a great question. I would take that.
Taking the show hostage on golf.
He's drinking Theraflu, and I don't even like golf that much, but that was a great great segment.
Sorry.
I do want to add, there's an article I read that Rory has gotten out to these huge first rounds and then collapsed.
I'm not taking him. I'd take Cam Smith if anybody, but
I feel like Scotty Scheffler may be on the verge of becoming the greatest golfer in the world. Maybe I'm drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit, but I can see Scotty Scheffler taking this tournament over and winning it.
he's been hot for 18 months or so now. We'll see. It's all about longevity. How long can you fend off these guys? Because there's a lot of people coming in. So
it's time to talk about the favorite time of the year. It's time to talk about the Jimmy James League, boys and girls. The greatest sport on earth. The sport that you can smack talk and you have to absolutely know nothing about the sport. You could have a 3-time league champion that doesn't even have a TV that he watches the games on. Yes, that is possible. It is called fantasy football. And I guess Raj and Shane decided they didn't want to talk about fantasy football. So Robbie, let's go first. We obviously, since we've been doing this show 2 years, we cannot get on here and talk about I like this player or I don't like this player. But are you getting ready for the draft?
Am I getting ready? Man, since I fell a little short of the playoffs last year, I've been thinking about my strategy ever since then and just slowly taking notes about what I have to improve. So I
think you two were in last place together. Robandel was in last place, I believe.
Don't get that started either. You're out the show.
Yeah. So things took a turn for the worst. I think I was on to a good idea, and then it went south because I kept drafting receivers that were teammates.
Did it go, or did it go towards the bottom of a bottle? That's the only question.
Yeah. So this year, though, I'm focused. I'm ready. I think we're still trying to figure out the draft location. It's almost a month away right now, and it's going to be epic as always. We will have for people watching, we will have a recording. It will probably take 6 months to edit it all to actually get it to something that can be shown. But yeah, we were talking before we got on air. We were trying to map it out. All right, we have 15 rounds. Can we get it done in 7 hours? We're like, well, that's like 30 minutes per round. That's way too fast. That won't happen. And so it's probably going to be. It's usually about a 12-hour process. And so yeah, looking forward to it.
Robbie, we'll just start with you up front. Was not drafting running backs the biggest mistake you've ever made in fantasy football?
No. Drafting 6 quarterbacks was the biggest mistake I've ever made in fantasy.
Okay. I can get with
But no. My strategy was going to work. You idiots kept loading up on. Now notice. I did not say you guys were being idiots. I said you idiots were.
My child was the best fantasy football player ever.
We're loading up on running backs. There's no need to. And I had my backups in. My problem was I just got a little intoxicated, and I picked wide receivers from the same team that had the same bye weeks, and then everything went to hell.
Okay, Doug Gottlieb. What about you, Raj?
First of all, I got to say that Robbie is more concerned with everyone having a great time. People don't know is the area where you guys grew up is beautiful. They have an amazing area on the river. We have buses with beds and a stage and DJs and yeah. And plus Rob is like the black sheep in a family full of highly successful older siblings. So he's got to like kind of stick out some way.
Overcompensate.
So I think that's all a part of it. Really, I don't know. I mean, Rob's a smart guy. I hate to say it because his head's huge, literally and figuratively. But he's not stupid. He's not going to draft that many running backs. And the day that he wins is the day that I guess everybody does. But to answer your question about fantasy mistakes, for me, number one, it's picking with heart. I'm a Raider fan. I don't pick Raiders. Number two, it's inclination and instinct. I think last year, if a guy did this year, he's going to do that. And that doesn't happen. My third thing was kind of along the same lines, I think. What have you done? I have notes because I get so biased. It's disgusting. Same thing, similar to the inclination. It's last year, a guy like Saquon Barkley running for his life with a horrible offensive line. My dumb butt took him second in one of the years that I didn't win the championship. And he screwed me. Like, you have to look at the big picture. Did that answer your question? I'm sorry.
That's good advice. You have how many championships? 2?
2 in 5 years.
2 in 5 years. That's more than I got.
I know.
Brandon, how about you?
No, I would reiterate what Raj says. I think Robbie is more concerned about everyone else having a good time, and he also indulges in the good time himself. So I think he throws these wild strategies out just to be different because everyone, 90% of the guys there have the same ESPN magazine and are drafting the same draft strategy. And blah, blah, blah.
No apps. Like one of our members, Clipper Clay, had an app one year, and we were just like,
most of the time, if you follow the herd, you're not gonna end well. So good.
I gave you guys too much already, dude. That was my.
I like the crazy strategy occasionally. My problem is I tend to have a different strategy, and then I'll come into it and we indulge a little too early, and then I have no idea what my strategy was anymore, and then it falls all apart. So,
well, you guys should train yourselves. Like Randall, at least, is smart and sober, but Randall's guilty, in my opinion, of being too smart and overanalyzing, which I can be.
After
alcohol can counterbalance.
After 9 years of this, it's
you gotta train.
I used to draft with my heart. If you ask Robbie, my first team, I think I had I
All
think I have
Titans.
37
The
Titans
Titans.
on my team. So,
This is once a year. When I'm
Uh,
saying like alcohol-wise, just like golf before the Open, like you should start training and swinging the club, bro.
well, like
Yeah,
so
right.
Randall, as we all know, has never won the league, and so his
Damn,
problem
I didn't
is,
know that. That's pathetic. I mean,
Yeah.
wow. I hope
his
you do
problem
well.
is he spends all this time doing mock drafts and assumes that they're going to go in a certain order, and there's not going to be some drunk that comes in and blows the whole thing up, pick 5, and then everything goes to hay, and it's like
That
it
is
doesn't matter how many
exactly
mock drafts you've done. It
it's
doesn't-
exactly
you don't
what happens
plan.
in our league.
Yeah, it doesn't plan for a kicker in round 3.
Hey, I will say this for myself. I have won a national contest. I have finished second in a national, well-renowned at fantasy football contest. I have won a DraftKings national big game weekend. I have no clue what you idiots are going to do when you start drafting. And
You've
it's
also finished.
You're trying to
last
convince
in this
yourself,
league.
not us.
the
Yeah.
most ridiculous thing. So here's my new strategy for the year. I'm not even
You
bringing
even had a buddy helping you out last year, and you still sucked.
Well, no. Hey, I will say this: now that I'm in charge, trades will be allowed, so we can actually trade again.
That's nice. That's nice. Yeah, and I did talk to a buddy because I would get frustrated. I was like, "Hey, should I do?" And I went back through my team. How did I lose? I had a great team.
How'd you come in last?
I would
I think-
take
Hey,
Last year, your team was really good, but
y'all
a lot of
think-
injuries.
last place team back. I'll just skip the draft. I feel that strong about it. I'll just play the same team I did last year.
Preseason number 1, man. Congratulations.
you know, it's a lot
Paper
of
champion.
luck in fantasy football. So you can be the best
Hell,
on paper.
Chris dominated all year long, and then pooped the bed in the
2 years in a row. 2 years in a row.
There's
Now,
more strategy that I will not reveal, but
outside
playoffs
of,
are everything.
do you guys play in any other leagues?
No.
Oh, I've had I started with Yahoo in 2001. I'm very loyal to my boys and my region, but this is the best fantasy league. I've said it many times that I've ever been in. There's just something about it. I hate to be this guy right now, but it means the most to dominate this league.
Most
That's a strong word. Dominate. That's strong.
I mean, 2 in 5 years. Who else has that ratio? Blake
I mean,
did for a little bit.
I have 1 in 16.
Well, that's like me and Yahoo.
I feel like Randall was the only one alive when I won mine.
yeah,
and he's
probably.
been alive for like 80 years too. That's awesome.
So one last question. We're going to move on to the SEC and conference expansion, and it seems like every week's discussion. But if and this is, you don't have to give a player away or nothing. What is your favorite place to draft in the order, Robbie?
Snake.
Yeah, Snake. Way we do it.
Easy for me.
I prefer to be around 5 because 1, 2, 3, or 4, I can get a
all the
little
hype.
crazy and make a big mistake. I think 5, I'm less mistake ridden. I don't want to be 1 because I can
You
definitely
just defined your fantasy career in one sentence.
Robbie doesn't have to think at 5.
Like the
Just
given
lay it
guy,
out
he's
there.
like, I'll make a mistake after
Hey.
everybody knows who's going 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah, if I'm at 1, I'm terrified.
I have been 2 years ago and drafted McCaffrey. He missed most of the season. Last year I was 3, and I drafted Dalvin Cook, and he misses most of the season. So when you're up at the top and you make a mistake or you hit a guy that's injury prone, it does affect the rest of your season. I do agree with you.
Depending on what
12 is
time
the
the draft
best.
is, I could pick
In
a
a
kicker
snake-
number 1.
In a snake, last is always the best. In
All
my
right.
Not necessarily. I'm going to say
In my
number
opinion.
7 this year. For
When's the
this
last time
draft
you
this
won?
year, I like number 7.
I
When's the
like
last time you won?
couple years ago.
Let me just tell you, winning this league means nothing to me. If Lenny told me he didn't have cable or a TV and he's won 3 times, it just washed the whole league out for me.
He beat me twice in the playoffs, and talk about like sheer God touching him with
Just
magic
FYI,
finger.
we're doing traditional waiver wire, not auction this year. Just throw that
Well,
out there.
then it doesn't need to reset every
No,
week.
I have veto power. We're doing auction.
Stop vetoing
Thank
me,
you.
Raj. I can't
Thank
run
you,
a
Raj.
successful league.
I actually like auction. It brings out
Everyone has a fair chance. Everyone has a fair chance.
We can talk about this all day. Randall is right. We should move on to super conferences.
All
We
right,
all know
guys.
that.
Let's move ahead to the super conference. And you are right. I just took my Theraflu, and that just increased my you could blind me with like a piece of dental floss now. So I know the show's winding up here. Oh God, I dropped stuff. But let's move ahead to the super conference things. The SEC this week, after last week, it was announced that Virginia, North Carolina, Clemson, and Florida State were supposedly negotiating with the ACC to get released from their contract. The ACC absolutely has the most horrible contract in the history of college sports, and I believe doesn't end till 2034. So they
36.
are 36. So they are just grounded. So everyone assumed, hey, here it comes. SEC's going to 20. Well, this week the SEC said, not so fast. I take it 2 ways, guys, and we'll get around to everybody. But I think there's 2 things going on. One, I think the SEC is in a position of power. And I think that a few of the more power-broken teams in the ACC kind of tried to jump the gun and get into the conference. I don't think there wasn't some backdoor talking. But I'm not sure UVA, Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina are the best options. So you never know.
Read books, though.
But, Shane, what do you think happened this week?
I think happened is the grant of rights agreement came into effect. And
it's $60 million for them to get out of their contract.
It is. It's a big payday. They own media rights till 2036, and for any SEC or ACC conference that jump ship. So, with all this kind of fast-paced movement going on, everyone trying to jump into a super conference, I think that was the big halt there, and I don't think that the SEC was the one to put the brakes on. I think the SEC still wants those big names, Clemson, Florida State. They want those guys there, and I think they're going to halt it at 16 until this gets resolved. And this could come down to, legal battles here. I read something earlier today about Clemson potentially getting into a legal battle with the ACC about this. So,
but Shane, you already brought it up. And I was going to ask somebody the question, so let me ask you. No doubt the Clemson's football is a national brand. But what does Clemson bring to the SEC besides a good football program and half of a very unpopulated state?
That's a good point. I'm not a Clemson fan, and I try to figure out the same thing in my head. There's several other options there that would be equivalent in my opinion, but I don't know. They know something I don't, obviously. Big name school, a lot of
great football school.
Yeah, great football school.
No money.
Okay.
Not bad in basketball. I mean, big alumni following, I guess. I don't know. It appears that even the Big Ten, I think, might even stop at 16 at this point. And we could see somewhat of a pause and kind of a chess match on who's making the next move and where.
All right, Raj, to follow up to that is the Rutgers effect. And Shane, too, if you want to comment, you're both Big Ten guys. You can't tell me Rutgers is in the Big Ten.
You are now, Raj.
I am now, baby. I am now.
You can't tell me Rutgers represents competition in the Big Ten. It's a
No, man.
horribly bad in all sports, but what it brought was the New York media.
That's it. And it doesn't even have a hold upon that, but out of the outside chance that they actually do well, it's the biggest media market in the world. At this point, can you exclude others that are already part of the conference, like team like Rutgers? No, because everybody needs a Kentucky historically, if you will, in football. But no, do they have to bring something to the table? It's much easier for an acquisition to do as much, but well, I guess your point being is they were acquired. Ironically, for geographical purposes, although the ACC does have Syracuse and runs the Eastern Seaboard, I think it's more evidence of the Big Ten being intelligent, pioneering, entrepreneurial conference.
Mm-hmm. SEC's trying to stay regional somewhat, touching
It always
states.
will be.
Big Ten is complete opposite. They're trying to go nationwide, coast to coast. So
Much more
that's the
intelligent,
difference.
literally and figuratively.
Well, so you have there's a difference though, right? So for the
It
Big
is.
Ten network, you have to charge per household, and the more people you get, then that's how you generate revenue. The SEC's model is we're regional, but whatever we charge, they're going to pay. So if it's $60 for the SEC network, people are going to pay it. Where the Big Ten's going, it may be $20 for the Big Ten network, but we're going to span it out to where enough people have to pay, and that's where the revenue comes in.
They're both part of the same sports package on DirecTV.
No. You have to pay. You have
Not
to
me.
pay.
I don't
Oh,
pay
no.
separate.
No. DirecTV pays them,
Oh, yeah.
and they put the cost off to you. So DirecTV pays ESPN X amount of dollars, and it includes so and so, and then they pass the package off to you.
For a global company and service, nobody cares about the SEC. I hate to say that.
No.
I don't know why it would
Raj,
be different.
but it's included in your. If you get ESPN, the SEC network comes with that, and ESPN prices that into it, and so it costs $30 per your DirecTV for ESPN. That's the SEC network, and
The Big Ten doesn't, despite their elite alliances.
No, the Big Ten network is they're kind of partnered with Fox, but it's a little different. Go ahead.
Let me
Randall.
comment to this real fast to clarify too a little bit, Robbie. Not that I need to make a point for you, but I just renewed my Dish Network contract this year, and if I wanted the package was the Longhorn Network, the Big Ten Network, like a couple of the Fox offshoot, but they also crammed Comcast Sports South into it. It was a package I had to buy of local, or I guess media, sports media, and like Robbie's making the point, my ESPN package that I normally get brought the SEC network. So I do not have the Big Ten network, but I do the SEC network.
Yeah, so the SEC network is built into the ESPN price, so you can't get ESPN without the SEC network. That's the power play. That's what they did, but nonetheless,
Isn't the viewership pretty similar, though, which would go to show you that the Big Ten network, people actually have to show that initiative and step outside. You know, it's not automatic. I didn't even know I had the SEC network until I moved here.
right?
I don't
Because
know how
you
long
buy
that's been.
ESPN, like even
The
the
Big
West
Ten
Coast
is the same, right?
No, not
A
speaking.
strong partnership with the big. I mean, when I think of ESPN, I think of the Big Ten games at 9 a.m. West Coast. I didn't know the SEC. Maybe that 7:45 game, but that's 4:30, as you know, in San Diego. Nobody cares.
But the SEC has owned the 3:30 CBS slot for years.
But
And
nonetheless, back
It was only relevant over the last, since Alabama.
And of the week.
Back to the question at hand. I do think expansion is done here for a while, and this is what I've always thought. It's 16 teams and 16 teams. You know what that looks like? The NFL. And we're gonna get it's already
And the
been
World
floated.
Cup.
You're gonna get 4 permanent opponents and rotating. You know what? Just like the divisions in the NFL, they are mapping out the exact product the NFL does, and they're gonna play it on Saturdays. And you know what? That's smart because that's what brings in the most money, and that's what it's all about. So you're gonna have the Big Ten and the SEC, AFC, NFC divisions play it off. Each division sends 7. I'm sorry, it sucks for college football because there's gonna be a lot of teams left out, but that it is what it is, man. That's where it's going.
I heard them called pods, like divisions in
pods,
the NFL. But yeah, it makes the group of 5 essentially irrelevant unless somebody shows promise and one of the super conferences wants to pull them in.
So
but who's left? I mean, the only chess piece left is if the Big Ten wants to go pluck Florida State and Miami, and they want to go down there.
And Notre Dame.
Yeah, Notre Dame's good.
Oregon and Washington are big schools.
Yeah,
So-
they are, but they're not huge I mean, Washington's a big city. It's not a huge market, though.
You're right.
Well, I think they've got the target markets already. Now you're just adding big money name brands like Oregon or something with other big additions. So I could definitely see that. I think it's a chess match right now. I think because of the halt with the Grander Rights Agreement and the ACC, what feels good to the SEC and who should be there, can't be there without litigation. I think there's going to be a stoppage here for a minute until the lawyers figure this thing out. And SEC will be the first, mark my words, SEC will be the first one to make them move if it happens over the Big Ten.
I forgot. Have y'all seen the ACC's the grant of rights situation? That's an idiotic contract.
It is.
Ironically, weren't they the first to expand?
Well, they
bringing
expanded.
in
They were hoping to keep
Syracuse
people from invading them, and then now they're stuck. So if Clemson left, they can't and this is where ESPN kind of gets weird and what do they control? They don't control because ESPN owns the ACC network also, and so can they release Clemson from this grant of rights TV contract?
All media rights.
Yeah,
This is for Randall, but we call this the Bobby Bonilla effect.
Yeah,
Nice
I'll tell you this thing.
all right, hold on, guys.
Contract lawyers are about to get paid.
What if, and I strongly believe this, it does not benefit anyone to destroy college football? I think there's a serious level of judgment going on right now among these 2 major conferences. And no doubt we're at 16. There's still enough good, and also recruiting is not really shifted completely yet. The ACC, Big 12 are still recruiting. Does it buy the Big 10 and the SEC anything to make Oregon and Washington and Cal and Texas Tech and Kansas State and BYU a non-factor? Does it do them any good, or does it buy them a bigger audience that they still compete for by having that, and we're going to bring along 1 Big 12 team and 1 ACC team, and we're going to make maybe an 8-team playoff where 6 of them are Big 10 and SECs, but your team still got a chance. Go ahead, Robbie. Jane, I'm coming to you next.
I apologize in advance. I'm not going to answer your question. I'm going to throw out a hypothetical, though.
Okay.
And so I was just, while you were talking about this is what I was thinking about. If it gets and so this is some legal precedent I'm going to talk about. If it gets to 16 teams in the Big 10, and 16 teams in the SEC, and they copy the exact NFL format, that may burst the antitrust laws that the NFL has been fighting. And then thus the NFL can then change their rules to say so
You got to explain that, though.
I'll back up. Yes, I'll back up. So the reason the NFL can't play on Friday or Saturday when college football or high school football and college football is in play, because there's an antitrust law that says you guys have a monopoly, and so you can only play on Sundays. Then once college football is done, they get those Saturday day games. They have those. But if college football copies them enough, it could be enough to bust that antitrust provision. Thus, NFL could then lift their restriction on 21 or 3 years removed from college, thus take players straight when they're ready. And the NFL could essentially eliminate college football. So this is a situation where college football should be very, very careful what you wish for, because there's a big player in town that you are getting very, very creeping up on their footsteps, and they could get real nervous and bite you.
All right, Jane, your thought.
So again, I think this is a chess match. Do the SEC and the Big Ten need any more acquisitions into their conference at this point? No. They're going to be fine. They're going to be the two super conferences, and everyone else is going to be left out, and it's going to be almost impossible for them to get in. Now, it's almost a win-win if they do pull in some of these bigger names for more money in the market, but it also helps that team. Like if you brought Oregon into the Big Ten, now their games are more relevant and they have a 10 times greater chance of making the playoffs or whatever. If they're not in these two conferences, the chances of them making the playoffs are pretty slim, because strength of schedule is going to factor in, So it's unfortunate for those teams left out. Not to knock that there's still going to be some good football out there in other conferences, but it is a mountain to climb to try and make that playoff. I think we're going to see this, stalemate here for, a few years or maybe longer. But that was a great point, Robbie, the NFL is king. And if they start getting a little nervous and start changing things or doing something of that nature, we could see this whole college thing blow up.
Like what the NBA did to college basketball, they lifted that age restriction. NFL can do that same thing, and it's over.
Well, especially with NIL deals right now. I mean, they're already getting paid. I mean, what's the difference?
The difference is pension and years in the league and guaranteed contracts.
It's about the latter. The Big Ten was smart, and they poached those teams for markets and for a reason. When it comes to NFL, it's about money. The Supreme Court ruled they were exempt from whatever the Sherman Act or whatever antitrust laws, and it's because licensing, trademarks, all that stuff was independent. It wasn't the NCAA.
I was thrown in the actual act. I appreciate
that's where the money. Okay,
what you're
I
talking
remember the
about.
Supreme Court decision, and I remember it because it was in like Chicago, whatever circuit that was. But I don't remember the Sherman Act, though. No doubt about that. I had to Google that, but it's money behind it, and like Robbie said, there's 32 teams. The NFL is a money-making machine. And with that comes, like I said, intellectual property, licensing, trademark. Long story short, there's more ways to make money that way. And college football has not been the case. That has not been the case. Now, that's why I think the Big Ten has been revolutionary, because they're following the NFL model. And I think they will continue to do as much.
Well said.
So I'm going back to my original thought. I think it profits nothing to. There is a new college football coming, but I don't think it looks as far removed from the current college football as we think it does. And here's why. And I'm gonna talk about, and these are from personal experiences. No 18-year-old can play in the NFL. Unlike NBA and MLB, physically an 18-year-old man cannot play in NFL. I had a college coach once tell me the only kid he thought could play in the NFL. He gave me two examples. He said, Bo Jackson, Herschel Walker. They were probably the only two people that could have played in the NFL without college experience. Number two, there's a whole factor of the Phil Knight factor going on for me. As soon as this went out, the word was Phil Knight basically hit the street and said, here's Nike money. Who's going to take Oregon? Not everybody has Phil Knight money, but I really don't want to see a college football world where Oregon and Washington aren't relative on some level. Now, if you're telling me Washington State's going to go away and they're going to be playing Montana in the FCA championship, okay. But I still want to see Virginia Tech. I still want to see Washington. I still want to see Arizona State. Is there a world that could exist where you have two major conferences, a sub-conference, the bowl system goes away? I don't know what it profits. I don't know what it profits the Big Ten and the SEC right now to continue to head down this road. I'm having a hard time getting my head around it. So, Robbie, to your antitrust point, I wanted to ask you, do you really think that you could do away from college football and bring high school kids straight to the NFL, or do you have to build and support a whole minor league system like MLB to be unprofitable? Because physically, I don't think it's possible as it is in the NBA.
Well, so you don't necessarily have to bring high school kids. You can lower the age to 1 year removed from high school, or 2 years, but is it so let's walk this dog down the road, right? If the NFL is allowed to play on Saturdays and Fridays, you don't think they can do as much drama as the college kids can do? Like, you're talking about a marketing machine. Like, I would be terrified if I'm caught. I don't know what would happen, but if all of a sudden they can take 20 and 21-year-olds and have them in a 2-year contract for the, say, Huntsville Titans, yeah, if I'm Alabama or Auburn, I get a little nervous. And put them on Saturdays, yeah, and yes, I'm nervous. There's always going to be your college football fans. There's always going to be your NASCAR fans. But, man, you look at those stands in NASCAR races, they are way, way more sparse than they used to be.
All right, Raj, could you have college football with the NIL where teams draft players before they're out of college, pay this player's contract, and we have a pseudo minor league system through the college already? And you do it through the system that you already have of NIL.
It's always about money, and the irony of minor league baseball is there's not much money. The systems are attached to
And
money, but it's a natural development. And yes, the answer to your question is no, because unfortunately the NFL physically demands the most, and that's also why you can't have a minor league system. Too many kids' careers, people would be ruined. College offers rivalries, which ironically will be gone in super conferences to some extent, but it's got alumni and boosters and money. So there's a lot more to this situation, to the topic, in my opinion.
Well, and Randall, let me ask you something real quick. Sorry. Because Raj made a great point about rivalries will be gone. as a Tennessee fan, as an older Tennessee fan than I am, and I still view Alabama as our biggest rivalry. Most people of my age view Florida as our biggest rival. Would you be happy if we got in a different pod than Alabama? Means we don't have to play them, but it's a better chance for us to advance into this playoff or SEC championship game.
I think for me, I've been through a generation that destroyed rivalries, and we forget Tennessee's main rivalries before the 12-team SEC. Yes, Alabama was one. Florida was not a team we played every year.
Right.
Georgia played every year. We played Auburn every year, which was considered probably our second biggest rivalry. Ole Miss, which was considered probably our third biggest rivalry. I do not want to see us not play Alabama. I consider it sacred, but at the same point, it's becoming, which was going to be my next question, competition. Who can compete with these elite teams of college football? And I think Alabama has proved that. As much as I love Alabama and Tennessee football, we haven't beat Alabama in 15 years. South Carolina, it's been decades since they beat Clemson. Auburn, it seems to be the exception to that rule. They can still play with Alabama, but Georgia Tech was beat 55-0 by Georgia. Ohio State, Michigan is still a valid rivalry. I think USC, UCLA has become rather one-sided over the decades.
And
These rivalries are becoming one-sided to the point where I don't know if they mean what they did at one point.
That's a great point, though. Non-conference games, will they become irrelevant if you have 16 teams in one league?
They have
And
to.
that's the unfortunate part. The other thing is if you divide things into pods, like Tennessee's in one pod and it's favorable to them, and Alabama is more difficult pod per se because theoretically they will come out on top. And then you have a higher level game, a quarterfinal, semifinal between two teams that know each other, and it's a bigger storyline. There's a lot of money in that.
Last
Yeah,
question. Close. Robbie, go ahead and make your point, and then I want to ask everybody this question.
I was gonna say that's the flaw in this pod system that I assume is copying the NFL. The NFL has parity down to a pack. Like college football is not that. Like Ohio State will always be the top of their pod. Alabama will always be the top of their pod. And so you're gonna have these weak pods that are gonna always get destroyed. Even though you can take the AFC NFC East, they're a weak pod now, but the system is made for them to get stronger. College football is not built like that. And so if you're in a weak pod, you're always going to be the weak pod.
The pods that I've seen proposed for the SEC, I don't think you have a weak pod. You had one pod topped by Georgia and Florida, which, as much as you might say Florida's down, traditionally a top 5 program. Georgia, an elite program.
No.
But who says the pods are regional?
Take the Big Ten pod.
Georgia and Florida.
They're going to have a Nebraska, Illinois, Indiana, Purdue pod. That's a weak pod.
If you add UCLA, USC to that pod, it's not a weak pod, and I would assume you would.
Well, where are you going to move? So you can put Michigan State, Illinois.
It's geographically logical. But to your point, USC has been down a crazy amount. They're still the marquee program in the pack. They cover 30% of the revenue and market share individually.
They're the alpha dog with Ohio State,
and they've sucked.
And probably Michigan now is the Big Ten program. I'd say Ohio State, USC are the top 2. Michigan's a slightly below them, but they're all 3 right there.
The shame of that is, I'm going to say, when this was first started around, Penn State was as big an addiction to the Big Ten as any school ever, and it was a football power. Has Penn State been in the Big Ten chain been good or bad for its football program?
Oh, they've been good for sure. I mean, there's been several, battles back and forth. some of the top schools in the Big Ten, Michigan, Ohio State, obviously. The whiteout game in Penn State's pretty awesome.
I'll watch
But yeah, no, they've been good for the Big Ten. Now I think James Franklin has not been so good, but that's a whole nother topic.
All right.
Were they in the Big East before? I don't even remember.
What's that?
The Penn State. Where were they before?
Yes, they were independent.
Yeah.
Have been independent for decades.
Oh, I thought they were in the Big East. My bad.
So, by the way, then we're going to go to the last comment. We've run long tonight. Sorry, everybody. I'm not on my game. By God, Big Ten, get Pittsburgh in the Big Ten. That makes no sense. Get Pittsburgh so we can get Pittsburgh, Penn State in the same conference. But last question, just give me the time. Take as long or short as you got. Can anyone other than a SEC team or a Big Ten team win a national championship in the configuration that's in now? Robbie.
We're talking, I assume the question was strictly football.
Yes.
But let's
And
talk
in the future?
let's talk about greater sports. With these 16 teams, you're probably gonna have a quarter of the NCAA tournament, Olympic sports. You're gonna probably have half to 3/4 to fill these two conferences. I would say with Clemson's fall off, talking about football only, if I had to bet at over under, I would go over. I'd go 2030 before. No, maybe 2036 before one of these schools don't win it. It's going to be almost impossible.
Almost impossible. I agree. Almost impossible.
Yeah, and until that's lifted and there's other moves made, like I know we all were ambitious of the 20 team for each conference and kind of saw that playing out, but with this the whole deal in the ACC, I don't see it happening, and unless there's a break
16-team playoff.
It's.
I mean, let's take Oregon as a case study. Let's say Oregon has a undefeated season, but they don't play anybody.
That's what I'm saying. You go on the basis of the whole
Notre Dame, Cincinnati. That happens today, though. But in a 16-team playoff, you've got a chance to really prove yourself.
Right,
but they play those out of conference games. But now with 16 teams, I mean, how much out of conference are you getting?
Well, the rivalries are no longer. You may as well cut down on conference games, and that's where the money will be in a tournament.
I will bet you a 2-loss Alabama. Once Texas Oklahoma gets in, a 2-loss Alabama will get in over undefeated Oregon.
But with 16 teams, you would think it'll, sort itself out.
All right, guys.
If it's a 4-team playoff, no, it's the top two from the SEC, the top two from the Big Ten. That's it.
It can't be that. It's got to be 16, and it's got to be seeded.
I don't think they'll go to 16.
Again,
I can
rivalries are non-existent at this point, except for maybe in the South.
So the SEC already said their commissioner.
No, they still have some Big Ten. If you kill the rivalries, I mean, that kills college football.
I mean, Oregon, Washington, Clemson, Notre Dame, Miami, Florida State, North Carolina to a lesser extent, Oklahoma State. They've got to be relevant in some way, shape, or form. Do they not?
Last year in recruiting,
100%.
Last year in recruiting, let's wrap this up. Two teams, that weren't in the now footprint of the Big Ten SEC finished in the top 10 in recruiting. And that was number 7, Notre Dame, number 10, Clemson. And I think that's the way of future. And if you look at the 22 rankings, and I think it's all about recruiting. That's the thing.
What about Cincinnati?
To discuss. No, they didn't finish.
That's what I'm saying. It's not just about recruiting. It's not on paper.
Well, what happened to Cincinnati in the playoffs?
I mean, they were competitive. How many guys did they go to the NFL? They have a great coach.
They They have.
I think recruiting means very little if you can't develop them. Those are paper champions.
Winning the national title.
Numbers would disagree with that.
Totally agree with that.
Right now, the only team in the top 10,
Campbell does.
the U. I know. I think it's all about recruiting. I think if you look at Alabama and Georgia, Alabama won the national championship when they had the number 1 class 2 years later.
Yeah, but you look at the
Hasn't
staff
Tennessee been
development.
top 10 and they've done nothing? In
Guys,
45
Staff
years?
that's developed for recruiting.
Random non on target question. Kirby's in his late 40s. How close does he get, or does he pass Nick?
Never. Doesn't happen. He may not win this decade.
Hasn't he had the
Okay.
number 1 class like more recently and they finally won one? Recruiting only goes so far.
Nick's at
It's
7.
headlines for nerds like
Nick's
us.
at 7. Kirby's at 1.
Everybody, let me make my point. There's a difference in recruiting and being at that elite level of recruiting. Ohio State is the only team that recruits at the level of Georgia, Alabama.
But now you're talking about regional differences and athletes and players and emphasis.
No,
That's why it doesn't
I want a roll
mean
call. I want a roll
it
call.
doesn't
Hold on.
mean what you think it means. It doesn't.
I want a roll call. Randall, you said never. He may be stuck at 1.
Yeah, I tell me why you believe Georgia is now.
Okay. Well, okay, all right, hold on. Raj, what do you think? Does how close does Kirby get to Saban, if at all?
Never, but when Saban retires, I mean, there's always a changing of the guard. Now, Alabama being like UCLA in basketball in the 70s, that was very different. The boosters and whatnot. Alabama and Saban are, dare I say, one of a kind historically and always will be. But Georgia has been the recruiting champion multiple times, and people want to go there because you have a chance to beat Alabama, blah, 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 blah. They finally did. Point being is I am contradicting my own point.
You are.
So how many?
Randall, you're wrong.
How
Recruiting
many
doesn't
does
mean that.
Kirby end up with?
Actually, I'm not, because they finally beat them one time, and Georgia has been a recruiting champion.
And Alabama just beat them in the SEC championship the month before. But yeah, how many does he end up with?
But did that matter? After Saban, I don't know. Even myself, there's a mystique about Alabama that
I'll go to Brandon.
doesn't
then.
exist with other
Brandon,
teams.
how many does Kirby end up with?
I could see 2 or 3 more. It's a different era now with NIL and transfer portal. Like, you get a 5-star recruit and you're like, sorry, dude, you got to ride the pine for a year. These kids are going to be like, well, I can go make $1 million and start somewhere else. So
What about super conferences? Theoretically, that would dilute SEC, like Southern massive kids, so to speak, athletically. I mean, theoretically, I think it would dilute.
Theoretically, but you look at these kids.
All right.
As a
Sorry,
18
Randall. I'll tend it back to you.
18-year-old kid that doesn't care if he's playing.
Now, let's get towards our closing of the night. First of all, great debate. I think we went sideways there at the end, but let's get finished up with a 2-hour rant tonight. First of all, did anybody hit their nuts last week that they'd like to brag about?
I don't
Negative.
know.
I don't even remember mine.
I think we all lost, to be honest with you, because I took the Braves and Kyle Wright, and I lost that. So I actually did some research this week, boys. I don't have one bet your nuts. I have 6 bet your nuts.
Whoa.
All in the NFL future. So
You
you're
only
gonna be
have
first.
2 nuts. You only have 2
You should
nuts.
go first.
So I'm just going to run through. These are all division winners or prop bets. So there's 2 prop bets, and I think this is the easiest lock if you're doing division winners of any of them. At -200 in the AFC South for the Titans and the Colts to finish first and second in some combination. There is no way the Texans or the Jaguars end up getting into that conversation. So -200 The Colts and the Titans, no matter the order, are first and second. Next one is a big money payout. Most wins in the regular season for the NFL. I'm going to give you the Buffalo Bills at plus 450. Now, I've got 4 division winners that I bet them all today. This first one, it really got to parlay it with something because it's so high. The Bucks at negative 300. That's just, there's nobody winning the NFC South other than the Bucks. The next little bit of a spoiler when we get to talking about divisions. I think best division competition may be this year in the AFC West and the AFC South. You can get even money on the Colts to win that division now, and I like the Colts to win that division.
I do too.
The next one and the last one I'll do is I'm taking a second, and I cannot believe the Ravens. Yes, that is correct. The Ravens are favored to win the AFC Central. So you can get the Bengals at plus 190 right now to win the AFC Central. And to me, that's probably the best bet on the board. So give me the Bengals at plus 190 to win the AFC Central. And if I've got
over me, but like who's got a tougher schedule overall? Theoretically, you would think it's the Bengals, right?
Bengals,
I don't know.
All right, Robbie. I thought you had the race last week. Sorry for my babbling, but I thought you had the race last week. I thought you were on the money.
Yeah, so
why?
I apologize in advance for how bad I've been this year. But this week, they're in New Hampshire. Plus 700 is Joe Logano, number 22. I think he's going to pull it out. He's raced here well in the past. So that's my one bet you're nuts. I'd bet 200 on him. I'm pretty confident that net you 1,400. And also, Raj said I was trying to be a smarty. I'm not. I'd bet 80% of our audience knows who J.D. Salinger is.
No, what I mean, trying to be a smarty is you suddenly then dropped Robert Smart. Of course, people should know who Salinger is. But then you're like, oh, and Robert Smart. We get it.
I know who J.D. Salinger is, but I don't know who Robert Smart is.
Oh, Robert Frost.
I do know. Hold on.
That's me.
Robert Frost is the greatest poet to ever live.
Rome does taken.
I'm more of a Whitman guy, but sorry, go ahead.
All right. Don't know how we're on poetry, and I don't know how we're on recruiting. And I'm high as a kite. Let's go to Raj.
Beautiful show. Are we doing last word after this? Because
yes,
I'm a baseball guy, so it's hard for me to do bet your nuts because we never know what's going to happen tomorrow. NFL-wise, I picked some futures last week, win-loss over-unders. So really, I wasn't wrong yet, but I will be wrong. I've got nothing. I'll tell you this. I don't think Cam Smith finishes in the top 3.
Interesting.
Too tough.
All right, Mr. North Carolina Golf Tour, Pinehurst boy himself, who shot a what on course number 4?
77.
77. Congratulations. That's very
Don't act like he's like 77 and messed it up. I Googled.
That's good. No, I was happy with that for sure.
5 courses there. Like I don't.
9.
Big land there.
Yeah, they've got 9 courses.
You're good. 9? Jesus,
Yeah.
you're good.
So
He chokes like a dog.
Way better at golf than fantasy.
that's also true. I'm going to stick with the Open. I think everybody, has seen Rory choke quite a bit. He's going to be my long shot to win it. at plus 340. I know he's the favorite right now. Still not a good chance that he wins it, but I like him here. And I'm going to stick for a safer bet is Scotty Scheffler to finish top five. He's at plus 165. It's plus money still. Pretty good bet.
I like that one.
I've got a quick bet your nuts. I think the White Sox, now that they're healthy, will overtake the Twins. And they're up 12-1 tonight. I'm not being sensational, but when they're healthy, they're a really good team.
That's the old Lookouts players.
Oh yeah.
Hey, what about
Twins?
my Cubs getting
On the Twins
rocked
that
right
are
now?
that are tanking? But yes.
What about my Cubs getting rocked by the Mets, who just went 2-1 with the Braves?
Yeah,
8-0.
I think Randall said the Braves would take 2 out of 3 at home against the Mets. Actually, I don't think you said that, but yeah,
They're in Fuego
Mets really,
right now, boys.
really showed them what's up.
So
Not that
I
the
want
Cubs
Lost
are
like
good.
7 in a row.
I'd like to go first and take a second. And I know we're running long, but we lost a young man today. I don't know him. Probably will never have seen him in life. His name was Spencer Webb, and he was a tight end at the University of Oregon. He had an accident, sledding, cliff diving, whatever. He was a young man out having a good time. I experienced something similar one time. I was leaving work, coming home to spend the day with my little girl. I didn't hug her for 6 months. Accidents happen and tragedies happen all around us. I've learned in life as I got older, give people their love, give them their praise. When I was thinking about that, and I wasn't even going to do the show tonight, I was like, I don't feel like it. And Raj kind of tricked me into doing it. And I got on here, and, you know, I never know when it's going to be my last show. And I didn't never know that night when I left coming home that I was going to have an accident. But I want to, all the folks that listen to us, and especially these 3 guys that do it with me every week, know how much I appreciate you listening to us and what it means to me. That you would listen to us babble and argue and go back and forth. And I see the numbers come in. Sometimes 12, 14 people. Last week, 700 people downloaded this podcast. The fact that you care enough about 4 guys that know nothing professionally about how to put a radio show together or a podcast can get on here and you give us your time, your intention. You invest in it physically. You follow our show, which is about to top 1,000 followers now, which seemed impossible 13 months ago when we started. Thank you. Like, follow, share us. We'll always do something stupid to entertain you. Most of the time,
that was poetic and poignant, and probably the best thing I've ever heard on this show. So you should have gone last, you jerk.
So now I'll give it to Robbie to follow that up.
Well,
Good luck, bro.
that's a tough one to follow. And I didn't really have anything planned, and I'll try to stay on your theme, Randall. You used the term accident, and I'll take some issue with that. Not that you're wrong, but just that that's not the right word. It's choices we make, and what we have to know is that we have to make choices it's better to pull over and take a nap, or it's better to choose one thing over another. All these choices lead up into what happens in life. And I guess it's my sympathy of I've totally feel what you're saying. But if you reflect back on it, it's choices, and those choices lead to outcomes. And whether it's you can smirk, Raj. It's an
I was just thinking.
It's
I agree with you, but this is
situation.
a kid that really beat the odds and had a horrible upbringing. And of course, there's going to be a sense of impunity, of invincibility. I can't blame him for what occurred. Now, I don't know the details. I know they're coming out, but to say it's just a choice made by a 22-year-old as if it was like a 50-50 decision. What I'm saying is I think so many of us, especially those that love sports, would have probably done the same.
Right, but you choose to do that. Then that's where I'm
That's
getting
the
at.
benefit of hindsight.
No. That's what I'm saying. Like, so whenever you make decisions, step back and think, what is the bad outcome, the good outcome? Like just kind of, instead of saying YOLO is what kids want to do now, step back and be like, hey, these choices have consequences.
Sometimes it's too late, though.
Yeah. So you think before you act is my point.
Hindsight.
Yeah. To both of your points, the day I did have my accident, there is some kind of human sixth sense. I actually told somebody before I had my accident, I was on the phone with, I'm getting off of here. Something weird is going on. Sometimes I don't know what you want to call it, but that little voice that tells you to think is trying to warn you sometimes. And I didn't listen that night in particular.
Sometimes I agree that it's going to be real. I haven't had the consequences you had, but I had consequences. And the time they've occurred, there's an element of like, this is different from other decisions I've made. Now, again, with this kid, we're not in his shoes, so I don't know. But I understand both of your points. I know Robbie is speaking in generalities, but again, hindsight's 20/20, and who knows what occurred and what brought him to that point.
Yeah. I'm not speaking anything about that kid in that
That's what I
situation
wanted to
at
clarify,
all. Yeah. Thank you for clarifying, Raj.
I thought y'all were saying the same thing. Brendan, you got anything to finish us up tonight? And by the way, Brendan, welcome back, man. I'm glad we waited on you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for pushing the night for me, boys. No, I mean that's all kind of deep, real stuff here. I wasn't prepared for the last words. I'll just add to that YOLO is, you only live once, and to Robbie's point, think before you act, because it could be your last time. So be careful.
I'm going to intentionally go otherwise here because you guys all said it beautifully, and I would just be harping upon the fact and saying it even worse. Again, Randall, your perspective and use of words was very impressive. Like Rob's the other day when it comes to the issue globally that we speak of with a female pregnancy and carried to term. I'm going to switch it up, and obviously it's different, but Freddie Freeman, back to our favorite subject, has not been named an All-Star. He's a former Gold Glover who actually he was 317. His average today was second in the National League. It's up to 320. Still keeps him second. He's tied for first in hits, third in the National League in OPS. He's top 5 in the National League in at-bats, runs, total bases, and again, like I said, OBP rather. He's top 10 in slugging and wins over replacement. The game's at his home park. I do not understand. Like, Will Smith is one thing, and that's my bias in operation, but how is Freddie Freeman, America's sweetheart to an extent, not an All-Star? What people may not know is that there's injury replacements, and generally there's probably 5 to 10 guys that are named after the fact.
Is he not on the team at all, or is he just not a starter?
Not yet. Garrett Cooper was named over him as a DH from Miami.
Silly.
And Garrett Cooper played more first base than DH. But, yeah, it's baffling. But as a Dodger fan, I'm kind of happy because since he was not named, he went 14 for 16 until he got an out tonight. Tonight he went 2 for 3. So I believe he was 16 for 19 since that being named. Point being is Randall and others have kind of alluded towards that, maybe people have lost interest in the guy. He's no longer the heart and face of a franchise. but we love him, and the fact that he's not an all-star just blows my mind.
Hey,
Oh, don't let fans vote. Don't let idiots vote.
Well, this is being named as a reserve by like the stat. That's not the fans that determine this.
Don't let idiots talk on this subject because
he didn't even make
is the baseball all-star game this weekend?
next
July
week.
19th.
Oh.
Well, yeah.
So-
Is that this weekend? Usually it's on like a
Monday's the
Tuesday.
18th.
It's on
Monday.
a Tuesday usually, right? Monday.
Yeah, it's on a Tuesday.
Yep. All right,
I don't-
guys. I agree with you, though. I don't understand it either. He's hitting 320, I think 11 dingers. I don't understand it. My cold medicine's starting to wear off, and I've got to go to work tomorrow, so I'm going to go to bed. Anybody else wants to stay up and talk to these guys, they probably would stay with you. But next week, join us from the Speakeasy 30. Go
Oh,
ahead.
that was my final word. I'm sorry, one more thing. Last thing I'm gonna say. What kind of vacation package does Tom have? He joined us 1 week and now he's on vacation. I need to go on vacation. I have to join us when we're on vacation. What the hell is going on here?
Well, we may have some leadership that failed to do his job this week and invite Tom. So he knew they were supposed to be on the podcast because I'm an idiot. And I've been
I
home.
renegotiate my contract.
You've been
Yeah.
sick, but yeah, I need new representation.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be here and on time, and that includes Rod. All right. Good night.
Not part of it.
God bless. Next week, join us from the Speakeasy, 3:30. Our buddy Tom.
Agent number.